Ever heard those stories about the SAS? The ones that make you wonder if they're more myth than men.
Right, like, are these guys for real or what?
Yeah, exactly. Today, we're going to try to separate fact from fiction, crack open some declassified files, and see if we can't trace the evolution of this legendary force.
Should be interesting. They've definitely got a reputation, that's for sure.
No kidding. So, best place to start is probably at the beginning, right? We're talking 1941, World War II is raging, and the North African campaign is just brutal.
Scorching deserts, Rommel on the move, not a good place to be.
And into this pressure cooker steps David Sterling. This guy was already a decorated officer, but he had this, well, radical idea.
Let me guess, he didn't want to fight by the book.
Not even close. He envisioned these small, highly trained teams like the ultimate surgical strike force parachuting behind enemy lines to cause chaos.
Ah, so we're talking about the birth of unconventional warfare. Bold move, gotta give him that.
And kind of insane when you hear about their first mission, Operation Squatter. I mean, talk about a baptism by fire.
What happened? Went completely sideways.
You could say that. Think about the worst possible luck. Atrocious weather, ran straight into heavy German resistance. The whole thing was a mess.
Ouch. I'm guessing those early SS recruits learned a hard lesson about the realities of war.
They lost a third of their men, either captured or killed. You'd think that would be the end of it right there.
Right, full detent, go home. But something tells me that's not what happened.
Not a chance. Sterling, he was nothing if not persistent. They licked their wounds, reassessed their tactics, and crucially joined forces with another legendary unit, the Long-Range Desert Group.
Ah, now we're talking. Those guys were masters of desert warfare.
The best. And that partnership, it was a game changer. Talk about a turnaround on their very next mission. They managed to destroy something like 60 enemy aircraft.
Seriously, from near total defeat to that kind of success, that's got to make a statement.
And without a single casualty on their side, suddenly everyone's taking notice. They weren't just blowing things up either. They were gathering vital intelligence, becoming experts in long-range recon. But then here comes the real kicker, the war ends.
Time to pack it in, enjoy the peace.
Officially, the SAS was disbanded, gone. Except, not really. You see, many of those early SAS guys, they weren't career soldiers, not in the traditional sense at least.
Oh, this is interesting. What were they then? Poets? Philosophers?
You're closer than you think. We're talking artists, writers, actors. They had this itch, this need for something more than the civilian world could offer.
Once you've tasted that kind of intensity, that camaraderie, it gets in your blood.
And they weren't going to ignore it. Within a few years, you've got former SAS men fighting communist guerrillas in the jungles of Malaya.
The Malayan emergency. Talk about a shift in scenery. From scorching desert to dense jungle warfare.
It's a testament to how quickly they could adapt their skills. But Malaya was more than just a change in terrain. It cemented the need for a permanent, professional SAS. The world had changed, the nature of conflict had changed, and they were at the forefront of that evolution.
The Cold War was looming, and things were about to get even more interesting.
Yeah, and Malaya, it was like a proving ground for the kind of unconventional warfare that would define the Cold War.
Right, because suddenly it's not about massive armies clashing head-on anymore.
Yeah.
It's about shadows and secrets and striking where the enemy least expects it.
Exactly. And the SAS, they were tailor-made for that world. They were running covert ops, training insurgents to fight proxy wars, gathering intel on the Soviets.
Always walking that tightrope, trying to prevent things from boiling over. High stakes, no margin for error. The skills they honed during this period, they'd become even more critical as the world moved into the 21st century. Counter-terrorism, hostage rescue, that kind of thing.
It takes a certain breed to handle that pressure. But let's shift gears a bit and take our listener behind the curtain a little. When we hear SAS Squadron, what comes to mind?
Oh, elite soldiers, small teams, operating with almost superhuman efficiency.
Right. But it turns out the squadron thing, it's not quite what it seems.
Yeah, it's a bit of a misnomer, left over from their wartime disinformation campaigns, I think.
So help us out here. What's the real deal?
Okay, so the basic unit, the heart and soul of the SAS, it's actually a four-man patrol. Each guy's a specialist. You've got demolitions, communications, medic, weapons.
Yeah.
Everything you need right there.
A self-contained unit of badassery.
Pretty much. And then 4 of these patrols, they make up a troop, and 4 troops make a squadron. It's all about that layered structure, maximum flexibility,
Makes sense. And then on top of that, you've got these specialized troops, boat troop, air troop, mobility troop, mountain troop. It's like they've got a unit for every environment imaginable.
And then some. Air Troop, those are your Halo and HHO guys. High-altitude parachute insertions, often behind enemy lines at night. Talk about nerves of steel.
And then there's boat troop, right? They're like the SAS's answer to Navy SEALs, except...
Except even more secretive.
Exactly. Experts in underwater infiltration, using rebreathers, the whole 9 yards. It's like something out of a spy thriller.
Don't forget about Mobility Troop. Desert warfare specialists, but they're also expert mechanics, which makes sense, right? You're in the middle of nowhere, your vehicle breaks down. You got to be able to fix it.
Right. And last but not least, mountain troop. These guys are practically mountain goats, trained for high-altitude warfare, Arctic survival. You name it, they can handle it.
They make scaling Everest look like a walk in the park.
No kidding. But hold on, what about the reserves? The 21st and 23rd SS? They don't always get the spotlight.
And their role, especially during the Cold War, it was pretty wild. Imagine this. World War III kicks off, Europe's overrun, and you're part of this tiny unit left behind enemy lines.
Talk about a suicide mission.
Basically, their job was to disrupt, to delay, to be a constant thorn in the side of the enemy, even if it meant sacrificing everything.
Man, that takes guts. You have to wonder what kind of person signs up for that, reserve or regular SAS. It can't just be about the training, can it?
It takes a certain mindset to even consider it. We're talking about one of the most grueling selection processes in the world.
Yeah, I was reading about their endurance test, 40-mile march with full gear, followed by a mountain climb, and you've got less than 20 hours to do it all.
And that's just one phase. They push these guys to their absolute breaking point, physically and mentally.
What are they looking for? How do you even begin to measure something like that?
It's not just about being tough, although you definitely have to be that. They're looking for resilience, adaptability, the ability to function under unimaginable pressure. Because out in the field, that's what's going to make the difference between life and death for you and your team.
So you could be the fittest person on the planet, but if you crack under pressure...
You're out. They need guys who can think clearly when the bullets are flying, when everything's on the line. That's what sets the SAS apart.
It's amazing, how they do that. Separate the wheat from the chaff, so to speak.
And the ones who make it through, they're not just tough, they're practically super soldiers.
Right. But here's the thing. For being such an elite, secretive organization, the SAS, they've really permeated popular culture, haven't they?
That's true. They're this weird mix of mystery and, like, almost celebrity.
Totally. And you can't talk about the SAS without mentioning that motto, right? Who dares wins. It's more than just words on a patch,
Oh, absolutely. It gets at something deeper. That human need to test our limits, to stare down danger and come out on top.
Yeah, there's that courage element, obviously, but it's also that calculated risk, that willingness to go further, push harder than anyone thought possible. And it's not just the motto, it's the whole image. That sand-colored beret, the winged dagger badge.
Speaking of the badge, did you know it's actually a downward-pointing Excalibur? Like from the King Arthur legends. Wreathed in flames, no less.
Seriously, I did not know that. Adds a whole other layer to it, doesn't it? No wonder they show up everywhere. Books, movies, even those reality shows where people pay money to get yelled at by SAS instructors.
We're obsessed with the extraordinary, I guess. Always have been. But, there's a flip side to that, too.
Oh, for sure. Can't ignore it. We glorify this stuff, put it on a pedestal, but there's a danger there, too.
Right, glorifying a certain kind of violence, forgetting the cost.
Right.
The human cost. And with a group like the SAS, so shrouded in secrecy, there are always those questions, aren't there?
Accountability, potential for things to go wrong. It's complicated.
It is. But one thing that can't be debated is their global impact. I mean, think about it. The SAS model, those small unit tactics, the intense selection, the way they adapt to any situation.
Everyone's trying to copy it.
Exactly. You've got the Australians, the New Zealanders, even the U.S. Delta Force. They all owe a debt to the SAS.
It's a heck of a legacy. So we've gone from the deserts of North Africa to the jungles of Malaya, from covert Cold War ops to, well, the SAS basically inventing a new kind of warfare.
And they're still going strong, which makes you wonder, what's next for them? Can they keep adapting to a world where the threats are changing faster than ever?
It's a question worth pondering. For us, for them, for anyone who values courage, innovation, and that willingness to push the boundaries of what's possible.
Who dares wins.
Who dares wins.
Yeah.
That's all the time we've got for today's deep dive, but keep that conversation going. What do you think the future holds for the SAS? Let us know.